Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to This is for my friend Natalie episode. This is our life. Okay, Natalie, I'm not going to give her last name. I don't know if she was a nurse on Okinawa or what her job was, but she worked at one of the hospitals. The interesting thing is, she worked at one of the hospitals, probably one of the ones I was in, because I had tubes put in my ears and I don't know what else. And then she worked at Madigan. That's where my dad died. So interesting. We have that connection. Although I don't know when she left the WAC, the Women's Army Corps, but she was a WAC, and they had a thing about WACs on the TV the other night. But anyway, PBS. On PBS. Okay, so here my wife. She said on PBS. Um, Okay, you were asking about that picture that you were commenting on. Yes, that was on Machinato Military Dependents Housing Area. My dad was an officer, but I would say my dad was not an a-hole officer. My dad started as an NCO. He started as a private in the infantry. So, he knew what it was like for the enlisted people. Now, on the other hand, our neighbor across the street, their dad, because they were two boys and a girl, was an academy grad, and he thought that his, didn't stink. He was better than everybody else. The whole family was better than everybody else. But his wife she was teacher. I'm not going to say the last name. She was my nursery school teacher, one of my nursery school teachers at Machinato Nursery School, which I loved that little place. We used to There's an ice cream distributor behind us, and sometimes we would climb the fence and we'd go over there and grab ice cream out of the freezers and run back, be eating them. And oh my God. And what's wrong, sweetie? No, just looking at things I would like to have, but oh, ow! Oh, the price? $156. What is it? An alpaca, pure baby alpaca rose gray poncho. Oh my. That's that place on the corner. Oh yeah. That place. Okay, so sorry. That's okay. So my dad was a company commander in Vietnam, but I mean this stuff doesn't matter. It's The Rock. That's what talk about The Rock. Um, so we were in Okinawa for 5 years. We lived in 4 houses. I don't know if that's, exactly typical of the military or not, but, we had 2 off-base and then 2 on-base houses. Our 2 off-base were in this neighborhood. If you went to the Officers Club, Fort Buckner's Officers Club, and you looked to the north, I guess north, there was a neighborhood over there. There was an Okinawan neighborhood, and then at the top of the hill was like a everybody neighborhood, and we lived up there, and we had one house up there and then another house there, and we had a brick wall. It's like a fence, but I call it a wall because it's brick. I mean, I don't think of a fence being made out of brick, so I think brick being a wall is 3 or 4 feet high. That's where when one of the typhoons hit, when I was like, Daddy, I want to go outside because the eye of the storm was coming over. Daddy, can I go out with you, please, please, please? And he's like, at first he's like, no. And, please, Daddy, please. And then he lets me go out for just like, a few seconds because he's out there making sure everything's still, fastened down and all that. Putting tape on the windows and boarding windows up and all that. You open one window or 2 windows or whatever. Anyway, so when we moved on to Machinado housing area, and then they later changed the name of it to Makimato or Makinado, because that's actually the more proper pronunciation. But
I'm even gonna pick my foot.
we lived on Cleveland. That was the street. And then later we lived on Cleveland Court. Now, I remember once when this is before we moved on base, um, there's some sort of lizard on Okinawa. You know, and it looks like a lizard. It's just a lizard. It's not a huge thing. It bit me,
Uh-oh.
and I bled. You know, so ever after that, I was afraid of lizards.
We
But
nice to the lizard.
yeah, so then my eyes are burning. But anyway, so um, when we lived on Cleveland, there was an incident. I don't know. I mean, since you were there when we were there, um, you may have heard about it, although I doubt this was exactly out of the ordinary. I mean, there was still a lot of ordnance left over from the war. I mean, this is only 20, 25 years after the war. And our chaplain on Okinawa, Mr. Stanford, who's buried at Fort Sam Houston, I went to his funeral. Um, he was just, you know, an NCO there on Okinawa during the war. Interesting that, you know, he was there as a, you know, an infantry soldier or whatever he was at the time, and then, you know, later on he's back as the chaplain, you know, as an officer. But anyway, so when we lived on, I'm getting taking my long way around this. I might as well just say it. When we lived on Cleveland, there was an incident where some of my friends found a bomb. It had worked its way up,
Oh.
you know, from the underground. You know, the water table, you know, it's so high and it just pushes things back to the surface. And they were playing it. They were outside. They found it and they went inside and they told their mom, and she said, "Yeah, yeah, whatever. Go back out and play." She didn't believe them.
Uh-oh.
And they were hitting it with sticks and
boom.
Yeah, and so there wasn't anything they could do for them. They were gone. But
But she caught heck.
well, it was
Well,
it was big news.
Listen to what your kids are saying, dingbat.
You know, and I remember my mother was a Red Cross nurse at my school, Machinado Elementary School, and she told me she had a kid came in. I don't know. I think he had his finger bit off by a snapping turtle. Either it was bit or bit off. And then I remember in school.
Wasn't no fun either way.
No. I remember back then our thermoses were lined with glass, insulated with glass, and it would break. We were kids. We dropped them. We threw them. You know, you have your lunchbox with Speed Racer and, you know, or the Three Stooges or Our Gang Comedy or Lassie or Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, like I liked. I would actually run around in my Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett costume year round. I don't care how hot it was. It was long sleeve and it was, I don't think it was necessarily leather, but it was thick. You know, I wore that thing to shreds. But if you remember, at the time, the SR-71 Blackbird didn't exist officially, yet it was known. I mean, it flew in and out of Kadena.
Damn right it was known.
Yeah, I mean, we knew. I mean, people knew. I'm not going to say I knew about it, but there were people there that knew about it. They watched it take off and land. They only did it at night, but.
My brother was on.
Oh yeah, my wife's brother was on Okinawa when we were there. But so we lived on those two houses off base and then two houses on base, and they were at Ticklebees. I don't know if you remember Ticklebees. There was this lady that lived down yonder, sort of down the hill from us. If the school was that way, she lived over that way. And I think she was like the widow of like a general or admiral or something like that. She had really pretty roses in her yard, and there were these bees, but they didn't sting. They didn't have stingers. They would catch them in our hands, and they'd fly around, and they would tickle. So we called them tickle bees. I think they were bees. They look like bees. We called them bees.
Maybe they were a bumblebee of some sort.
Could be. But the mongoose snake fights. I hated those. You know what? I became an honorary member, First Special Forces Group. How did I do it? Kadena Carnival. They had two jump towers. One was an Air Force jump tower, one was a Special Forces jump tower. You would climb up the tower. They'd put a parachute pack on you because, we were kids. They had to really like strap them on there, so they didn't quite fit. And
they had to get the skinny guy ones.
Yeah, and then they'd clip you onto to the line. It was this long, heavy metal cable, and it was tied to or connected to a post. Now, an adult, when they go down, their feet would hit the ground. Hopefully we hit the ground, otherwise smack. But for kids, they had to actually have somebody standing there to grab us. Otherwise we would smack onto that post. But yeah,
ouch.
Yeah. But when you did that, you got a certificate saying honorary member, First Special Forces Group Airborne. So, but I lost all that in the fire. But
sorry.
Thank you. But I loved Okinawa. I mean, I thoroughly loved that island. I guess the only thing I regret doing, well, two things. One, across from the main gate of Machinato was a toy store, a little toy store. It was an Okinawan store. But it's a perfect location because there's a military base right there. There's all those American kids. So the parents are going to stop right there. Perfect location. Well, me and some friends, we went off base. None of us carried ID cards. Some of the kids had actually, this is my mother's, but some of the kids had my parents wouldn't let me wear my tags because I would always lose them. But tags are not.
Had to sold to you.
Yeah, so tags were not. They're not like legal ID. They're just.
But still.
Yeah. So we went off base. We didn't think of it. We went and we harassed that poor lady. We would pick up they had a BB gun. No, we had like a nickel or something on us. And back in those days, a nickel was a lot of money. But you couldn't buy a BB gun for a nickel. And we would grab it and would run around the store. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. And the poor lady was chasing us. We never stole it. We never stole anything. We just gave her a hard time.
That would have been the case. You would have really caught hell.
Oh yeah. And then we went to go back on base. What do you think happened? The MPs wouldn't let us back on base.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they said, you have any ID? No. Some other kids started to pull out their tags. It's not ID. And we're like, oh, shit. And so we're like, what do we do? So we start walking toward Naha, which was like right there. But there was a hole under the fence. And the thing is, they're the MPs right there. They can see us. They're watching us. And we crawl under the fence, and I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I'm going to get in so much trouble. Oh no, my parents are going to go.
Yeah,
right. Well, the MPs were just playing with us. We didn't know that. I didn't know that anyway. Because I thought I was in deep trouble. But, nah, they didn't. We just kept going. They never did anything. I remember when things would get hot, and they put the 50s on the back, 50s or either the M60s or the 50s on the back of the Jeeps, and then the driver of the Jeep would have his gun, and it was they'd shut down the base sometimes. and
What do you mean?
because of the protest
Oh,
demonstrations, and once we were going to have our family picture taken, and this was north of where we lived, and something city I think was the name of the place. Anyway, we always had a family portrait taken, usually with our dog, and uh, not that day because all of a sudden there was a riot, or not a riot, but demonstration, like red flags. Remember the communist flags? And they saw us, we saw them. We're Americans. They started coming toward us. Oh boy, I'd never seen my dad behave that way before or after. And he,
not good, huh?
well, it's like he became a soldier. He put that car into reverse. He was going down alleys and side roads. He got us out of there. It took a little while, but he got us out of there.
Yeah, but those people got caught hell too, though.
Oh no, it was. I mean, that was scary. That was
They
a
went with the
scary
military. Leave
situation.
them frick alone.
I remember at the nursery school, there was a road that went up the hill and then came down, went right into the ocean essentially on the side of the nursery school. And the Okinawans would come and they'd in the morning, like at low tide, and they would harvest sea urchins. I don't know if they were eating the sea urchins themselves or the roe or what, but oh gosh, I could go on and on and on with stories from Okinawa. I love that place. I mean, I loved Okinawa. Oh, but I'll end this because it's already almost 17 minutes.